Welcome to selfdiscoveryradio.com, where the orchard of wisdom is just ready for picking. We celebrate your why, the journey that you've taken that inspires someone else. We support your services, we support your story. Come and be our guest, become a host, be an author with us. Come and see what we've got. Our next show is... Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Hello, everybody. I'm Sara Troy, and you're listening to Sara's View of Life. Each week, I bring you a different topic, a different perspective on life, something that I've observed. And so what I'm looking at today is something that just came to me in the middle of the night. Does childhood neglect and trauma make villains? Do all our world leaders have traumatic childhoods? And I found it a really interesting topic, a lot from the reason because of the people I've interviewed, those that have had the most to overcome in life, the trials, the tribulations, the journey back to self, that self-discovery. It came from a very traumatic childhood, either of abuse or neglect, narcissistic parents, all sorts of things. So it made me look at it and question. And so what you're going to get today is kind of my observation, which I invite you to write back to me and let me know what yours is. So here goes. When you look at the leaders who become dictators and narcissistic egomaniacs, do they have in common a traumatic childhood? We see in adults today an insecurity that very often stems from an unloving childhood. It can come in abuse, both physical and mental, and also in the form of neglect. We know children develop their empathy frontal lobe early in childhood, and if they're not shown love and how to care for others, animals, and nature, they become very immersed in self. They're self-important, self-obsessed, self-motivated to be at the top, at anybody's expense, everything self, and very often at the expense of everyone around them. And I invite you to come and listen to my narcissistic, sociopath, and psychopath series, which covers a lot of this. Something we see in common with our villains today is, in the movies, is that they all had a terrible time connecting to heart, as is they were neglected as a child, or very often through abandonment or abuse. All of the people that are evil hurt the children. We see those that have become the villains, so to speak, in the movies or even in life. They were hurt children that were treated badly. And instead of getting over it or going through it, in turn start hurting other people because they themselves were hurt. Is that pain so much that they need to inflict it on others to release it? Because surely if you've been through it, you would understand the pain of it and not want someone else to go through it. I would think if they've suffered such pain, they would seek more love, strive to find love within themselves to heal, look to placing love around them in order to love that inner child. Alas, what we see is the blame game, inflicting pain on others to try and make themselves feel better. It is entrenched in the patterning of their DNA, or is it? Can we break that DNA? Yes, we can. Can we break that habit, that patterning? Yes, we can. Very often they cannot see a way out of it. They're caught in a loop, in that loop of victimization, or an unable ability to see it as the inner child that is making them make the choices as an adult. We see this come across in the forms of addiction, drugs, alcohol, or manifesting in many other forms of addiction. Or is it a choice to stay a victim because it's easy to blame others for your pain rather than do something about it? When we stop holding on to our past and start taking ownership of our own lives and choose a more better, loving life, only then can we choose to make the life that we want for ourselves. There are so many people who have had things happen to them in childhood, and it may not be abuse or neglect in the family, but trauma, a loss of a parent, change of a lifestyle, something happening. And that's it's part of our living experience. It's part of the reason why we're here, to find our strength, to find our courage, to find our way through something, not to get stuck in it, and not to use it as an, an excuse for our behavior today. We need to find our way back to loving our inner child. But first and foremost, you have to understand that it's your inner child that is damaged. Everything happens to people. And, stuff happens. And we actually have to make a choice along the line in going, am I my past? Am I that victim? Am I still going to give my power away to the person who victimized me? At what point do you stop and say, I'm going to take my power back? I'm going to be all that I can be. I am going to place that love and nurturing on myself to step out of that pain and into a life that I choose for myself. Being a tyrant, a villain, a dictator, a power-hungry leader who hurts its own people to feel more powerful only makes that so-called leader weaker than anyone else. True power is in the empowerment of your people, not the bullying, terrorizing, or crippling of your people to make you feel important. So what do you feel about this topic? How do you feel about this? What I see here is an inner child lies within every one of us. Every one of us has had something. People who say, I had a perfect childhood, but my adult life is screwed up, you'll generally be able to wind the clock back and see something happened to them along the line that they didn't deal with, that's manifested it, held on to them, crippled them, and very often they do not know that that is what the problem is. So, this is your life. This is your choice. No matter what you've been told, and believe me, I know, I was never expected to be anything. Let's hope she makes a good marriage. She's uneducated. She just hasn't got the smart. She is slow. Everything I was told through my life have not been enough. Never enough for anybody. Yet people were drawn to me. They wanted me. They needed me to nurture them, to help them get on their feet and feel good about themselves. Yet I was not good enough, apparently. I'm not quite sure why. The journey into my own self to being good enough for me, by my own standards, living up to my own expectations, being all I can be, in my own parameters, my own consciousness, and my own contribution, has been a long journey, but I am here. It was work. It was work that I had to do in letting go of old patterning, letting go of old expectations, of that dictation of what you should be. You must be, you should be, we expect you to be, you've got to be. When you push all of that aside and you decide, what do I want to be? Who do I want to be? What do I want to stand for? What is my contribution to society, to living here on this planet? And how can I be more of myself and bring that to the table, and that be enough from my own participation? You see, you're never going to please everybody. Everybody is always going to demand something else from you. No, you're doing that wrong. Your approach to that is wrong. You should do it this way. This works for me, so it's got to work for you. Everybody has their own journey, their own way of doing something. It's like exercise. When looking for that right exercise that matches you, that makes you feel good, that makes you want to do more of it, that's the kind of exercise that you go after. All right? If you love doing it, I love swimming and just some flat casual walking, off to a coffee bar, meet some people and walk home. And I love swimming because I'm weightless in there and I can do so much more. That is what I'm comfortable with. That means I'm going to do it more often. I'm going to do it with an enjoyment of it. But to go and do what somebody else does. I go to the gym. You should come to the gym with me. You've got to do this. You've got to do it. You will feel better. And you don't. Suddenly you feel a failure. How come this isn't working for me? How come I don't enjoy it? How come I'm hurting? How come I'm this? So you just got to work through it. It's not for you. Now, I'm not saying that you don't push your own boundaries, but you've also got to go and do what suits you for you. It's the same with everything in life. What's your gift? Because I promise you, right from childhood, despite what has happened to you, in actual fact, it's the gift that was given to you. That gift of neglect or even of childhood abuse, of trauma, has been your gift, because what it's done is helped you find your strength and your courage and your ability to decide for yourself what you want out of your life, and then the gumption to go and get it. It made you the person you are today. Now, do we all have to go through this trial and tribulation? We hope that with this next generation, we can nurture and love them for who they are right now, doing what they're doing, so they don't have to go through so many potholes. But please understand this. If you have been injured as a child, if there is an inner child in you calling out for love, for hug, to be wanted, to be valued, to be seen, to be heard, you are going to have to create your own platform in which to make that happen. Don't put blame on your parents, because very, very often they're caught up in their own cycle and they've done the best that they can in their own parameters. Do look at society and its expectations, where it says, you've got to, unless you're this, you're a failure, and go, basically up yours, society. Don't let you dictate what's good enough for me. Where I'm going, the heights I want to achieve, what I stand for, what I want to contribute has to come from my choices, has to come from the value, the abundance, the enrichment that lies within me, that I have journeyed to seek, to embrace, and to express. You see, everybody I've interviewed that has had a rocky past has worked through it to learn about themselves, discover that love of themselves, the gift that they were given, and now their contribution to society. That has become their calling, their instrument. Every one of them have said, however hard it was as a child, they're grateful they went through it, because they won't be who they are today. So we don't want to see our children hurt, not if we truly love them. But very often, and I know I made numerous mistakes as a parent, there's so many things I would have done differently had I been the parent today. But I was the parent then, and I was in my own turmoil, I was in my own issues, and I was working through those while trying to be the very best mom I could be. But the one thing, whatever I may have let my kids down on one thing, they always knew this: I love them. I celebrate who they are. I didn't always agree with their choices, didn't always like the paths they took, but I love them. I believe in them, and I know the core of who they are and what they are here to contribute is pure and true. They had to take their own life's journey to get there. I'm sure if they talked about their childhood, they would go, I wish this didn't happen. I wish mom was stronger. I wish dad didn't do this. There's always I wishes. But you know, that is the past. That was that chapter way back then. You're on a different chapter now. What are you going to write in this chapter? What do you ultimately want your book of life to mean, to stand for? How do you want to be represented? Because it's not going to be your beginning chapters. It's going to be how you close it off. And how you close it off is going to be what people will look at to want to know the whole story. So, from one injured child to another, I promise you, you can overcome. I promise you, you can go through. I promise you, you'll be stronger for it. I promise you, you will discover yourself and your beautiful gift and contribution to life and society here on this planet. And you will step into your own love of self, of life, and of everything in general. But you have to be willing to go through it, let go of the past, to make the choices that serve you in the now. Don't feed the past. That will just keep growing. How about feeding what you do want, how you do want to be treated, where you really want to go in life? Water those seeds, nurture them, speak to them, be that ray of sunshine for them. Let them grow, because that is going to be your garden. That is going to be your feast, your harvest, your contribution. Let your beauty grow. Be that contributor through what you grow. Feed who you are and who you want to be today. and leave the victimization or leave the pain behind. Because we have seen in all of the movies that we've seen, the villains, generally it goes back to hurt or neglected as a child. When we look at a lot of our political leaders and tyrants today, look at their childhood. Oh, they're rich. They grew up rich. That meant nothing. Very often when there was so much money in a family, there'd be so little love because everything was driven by the power, by the money, by the prestige, and not by that simple thing a child needs. Loving arms, looking into their face and saying, I love you. We all want that. So look into your own face. Go to your mirror. Give yourself a hug and say, I love you. And that's enough. Let me know what you think. Do you think that our tyrants of today and the villains we see in the movies, that it all stems from our childhood and the way we were brought up? Do you think it's an excuse for the behavior, the shootings that we see in the schools, bullied at school, neglected at home, so now I'm going to take everybody out? Do you think that's okay? Or do you think that every single one of us at some point has to take ownership and go, you know what, I'm wounded, I'm hurting, but what am I going to do about it? It's not about me inflicting my pain upon another or making somebody else pay for it. It's about me finding my strength and courage to face it, work through it, and become what I want to be. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. This is Sara Troy from selfdiscoveryradio.com on Sara's View of Life. Bye for now. For more wonderful shows like this, please go to selfdiscoveryradio.com, podcasts, and see our lineup. And if you wish to support us, we have a funded button. Please stay tuned for our next show.